No more support until you get a real job, Dad announced. Mom pushed a want ad across the table. That's when the news alert flashed. Youngest self-made billionaire reveals identity. They froze when my photo appeared. Hey, Reddit. It wasn't like I was asking them to bankroll my life. I just wanted a little patience. I had been working for years, quietly behind closed doors, investing every minute into an app one started developing in my college dorm. I never bragged about it. Never expected praise. I just wanted to make something real, something meaningful. But to them, if I wasn't wearing a name badge at a corporate office and stuck in traffic like everyone else, then I was wasting time. I remember that breakfast like it happened this morning. Dad folded his newspaper with a sigh so theatrical, I almost laughed. He stared at me over the rim of his glasses like I'd committed a felony. Mom set down her teacup and reached into the drawer for a piece of paper. No more support until you get a real job, Dad said. No more free ride. You've had your fun. Then Mom slid a want ad across the table like she was handing over divorce papers. I didn't say anything. I just looked down. It was an ad for a cashier position at a local grocery store. You need structure, she said, with a forced smile. You need to be out in the real world. You can't just sit in your room all day on that laptop. I felt that old familiar shame creeping in. The kind you feel when you're a kid and your parents are disappointed in you, even if you haven't done anything wrong. But before I could reply, Dad's phone buzzed. He picked it up, eyebrows furrowed. Breaking news, he mumbled. Then he read it aloud, not expecting it to matter. Youngest self-made billionaire reveals identity after 2 years of anonymity. He stopped mid-sentence. My heart pounded. It was happening. The company I'd built, an AI-driven productivity and time management platform for remote teams, had just finalized a merger with a major tech giant. The legal team had advised me to stay anonymous until the dust settled. But the embargo had lifted at 8 a.m. sharp. It was 8:13. Dad kept scrolling, slower now. Mom leaned in, curious. Then the photo appeared. It was me. A candid photo from last year. Me in a hoodie, holding a tablet, laughing with my small team. The headline was stamped across it like a badge of honor. Avery Grant, 26, creator of Taskly. Valued at $2.3 billion after acquisition. They froze. Dad stared at the screen, blinking like he couldn't trust his own eyes. Mom's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. For a second, I didn't say anything. I just watched them. And then, like a pressure valve releasing, I stood up from the table and pushed the want ad back across to Mom. Sorry, I said quietly. I'm not available for entry-level work right now. I walked out before they could speak. My car was already packed. I had a flight that afternoon to San Francisco to meet with a new board. But that was just the beginning of the story. When I landed on the West Coast, my phone had exploded. Old classmates I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly congratulating me. Distant relatives sent messages dripping in awe and flattery. But most surprising of all was the missed calls from my parents. Dozens. I ignored them for the first few days. I needed space. My entire life had changed in one morning. Interviews were flooding in. Forbes. Business Insider. Time. Everyone wanted a quote, a comment, a piece of me. I was in rooms I never imagined I'd enter, sitting across from CEOs and investors who once wouldn't have given me the time of day. But at night, lying in my hotel suite, I couldn't stop hearing Mom's voice. That smile she wore when she handed me the want ad. The conviction in Dad's tone when he said I needed a real job. Did they feel ashamed now? Embarrassed? Or were they just afraid they'd lost control? A week after the reveal, I finally answered one of Mom's calls. Avery. She breathed. Oh my God. We saw everything. Honey, we're so proud of you. Proud? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Where was this pride when I was eating instant noodles and working 18-hour days? Where was this pride when they mocked my startup and called it a hobby? Dad got on the line and for once, he was quiet. He tried to ask about the company. How I built it, how I kept it a secret. I gave clipped answers. Then he said the words I'd been waiting for. We were wrong. I'm sorry. It wasn't much. But it was something. They asked when I'd be coming home if they could see me. I told them I didn't know. Because part of me wanted to forgive them. And part of me couldn't forget how quickly they'd given up on me. But this story isn't about revenge. It's about transformation. Over the next few weeks, I tried to decide what kind of daughter I wanted to be and what kind of person I wanted to become. Fame is a spotlight, but it doesn't warm you. Money is freedom, but it doesn't heal wounds. I kept my distance, but I didn't cut them off. I needed clarity, not bitterness. Then one evening, 2 months later, I got a letter. A real letter. Ink on paper. It was from my little brother, Ethan. He was 16, still living at home. He wrote, "Avery, you're my hero. I know Mom and Dad made mistakes, but I saw everything you did. I want to be like you one day. I believe in you. Always have." That letter shattered me. Because for all the validation and praise I was getting from strangers, this meant more. I booked a flight the next morning. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to show up without headlines, without cameras, just as me. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just outgrown it. When I stepped inside, Mom was standing at the sink. She turned, startled. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Avery, you're home." I nodded, but it wasn't really home anymore. I looked around, expecting the awkward silence, the stiff small talk. Instead, I saw Ethan peek out from the stairs, then rush toward me and hug me like I was a superhero. Mom invited me to sit. Dad came in from the garage and paused like he couldn't believe I was real. They tried to talk and I listened, but I was different now. I told them I wasn't angry. I just needed time. And they told me something I didn't expect. They'd been talking to a counselor. Trying to understand where they went wrong. Trying to be better. That was the moment I realized this wasn't the end of our story. It was just a turning point. And then Dad, still a little awkward, reached into a drawer. He pulled out the same one ad. But this time, he laughed. "I guess we were a little off the mark, huh?" I smiled. Just a little. But things still weren't resolved. Not really. Because the more I tried to reconnect with them, the more I noticed something that didn't sit right. There were details about my company, private details, that had somehow leaked to the press. Things only someone close to me could have known. I started wondering who told them. And why. It started small. Just a sentence or two in a podcast transcript I never agreed to. Then a blog post quoted a figure from an internal beta test no one outside my core circle had access to. At first, I blamed the usual suspects. Overzealous PR staff. Careless junior execs. But the more I dug, the more I saw a pattern. The leaks traced back to things I'd only ever said at home, back when I was still living under my parents' roof. Ideas I tested aloud at the dinner table. Frustrations I vented late at night to people I thought were safe. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. But part of me knew better. So I tested it. During my next video call with Mom, I mentioned a fake expansion plan. Something deliberately implausible, like launching Taskly into rural agricultural markets with AI-powered crop scheduling. Completely off-brand. 3 days later, a journalist from a mid-tier tech outlet asked me about exciting new AI verticals in the farming sector. That was the moment everything inside me hardened. I hadn't been paranoid. I'd been naive. The next time I called home, I recorded the call, not for revenge. For clarity. We talked for 30 minutes. It started normal, Mom asking how I was sleeping, Dad chiming in about some documentary he saw on startups. But then Mom, too casually, asked again about upcoming projects. If I was considering rural sectors or anything new and surprising. I deflected. Smiled. Played along. After we hung up, I felt like I'd swallowed glass. I didn't know if they were selling information or just leaking it out of pride, trying to seem important to people in their circles. Either way, it meant they were using me. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed more. That's when I looped in the private security firm that my new CFO insisted I hire. They were ex-intelligence, low profile. Expensive. I gave them one instruction. Find out how the leaks were happening. Do not interfere until I say so. 3 days later, they had everything. Mom had been bragging about me in a private Facebook group. That was the starting point. But the real damage came from Dad. He'd been giving exclusive tips to an old golfing buddy, a local radio guy who dabbled in tech gossip for a quick buck. And that guy had been forwarding everything to a digital media firm that specialized in turning insider whispers into trending posts. My parents had turned me into their lottery ticket. Again. They didn't ask for money directly. They didn't sell passwords or steal IP. But they compromised my privacy, my trust, and my peace of mind. All for a few moments in the spotlight and, reportedly, a few under-the-table checks. When I confronted them, it wasn't with shouting. I invited them to lunch at a quiet bistro near my office. They were all smiles when they arrived. Mom dressed too nicely. Dad checking his watch like a man who expected good news. I started with compliments. I told them I'd appreciated the apology. That I'd felt encouraged seeing their effort to be better. Then I pulled out a thin folder. Inside were the printed screenshots. Messages. Logs. Quotes from the radio segments. Connections back to both of them. Mom stopped breathing for a second. Dad's face went pale. I didn't need to yell. The silence did it for me. Dad tried to explain first. Said it wasn't malicious. That he was just sharing some pride with a friend. Mom said she didn't even know how far it had gone. I asked a single question. If I were still poor, would you have done the same? They had no answer. That was all I needed. I paid the bill. Walked out. I didn't block them, but I stopped responding. A week later, I sent a message. It was short. I love you both. But trust doesn't recover by accident. It has to be rebuilt. From a distance. Then I cut off access to my calendar. To my assistant. To my personal line. I focused on the people who had never needed my money to believe in my vision. My team. My best friend from college, who once brought me groceries during finals week when I couldn't afford takeout. Ethan, my little brother, who started sending me articles about market analysis just to impress me. And for Ethan, I did something special. I opened a trust in his name. Quietly. Enough for college and a cushion for his future startup, if he ever decided to build one. He didn't know it yet, but it was waiting. Because I wanted him to rise without owing anyone. Months passed. Then one night I got a letter. Handwritten. From Dad. He said he'd started therapy. That he was ashamed. That he realized how small he had made me feel all those years. And that it wasn't just about the money or the app. It was about control. Fear. The need to feel useful in a world that was moving faster than he could keep up. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Just a second chance. And that's the thing about healing. It's not loud. It's quiet. Like a soft knock on the door after a storm. I haven't fully let them back into my life. But I'm watching. I'm listening. I believe people can change. Slowly. Deliberately. In the meantime, I'm building something bigger than Taskly. Not just a company. A community. A mentorship network for young, underestimated builders who don't come from the right zip codes or Ivy League schools. I'm funding apps made in basements. Tools coded on borrowed laptops. I'm giving them what I never had. Belief without conditions. Because I know what it's like to sit at a kitchen table. Holding your dream in one hand and a want ad in the other. Wondering if anyone will ever see what you're trying to build. Now I'm the one sitting across the table. And I slide them a different kind of paper. One that says, I see you. Let's build.